So if you've been anywhere near the crypto market this year, you know 2025 has been, well, pretty disappointing. That huge breakout we were all geared up for just never happened. But what if all that sideways frustration is the exact setup we need for an absolutely explosive 2026? We're going to dig into analyst Tom Lee's Contrarian forecast for a powerful V-shaped recovery, and trust me, his reasons might surprise you. And man, does this quote just hit the nail on the head. We were all told to expect a parabolic move, right? The moment that all the longtime holders would finally get rewarded for their patience. Instead, the market just kind of fizzled out. That feeling, that shared frustration, is exactly where our story begins today. Yeah, people are calling this the wash year, a period of just flat prices, consolidation, and a whole lot of people second-guessing themselves. But according to analyst Tom Lee, this isn't a sign of weakness at all. He argues that this sideways market is actually building up the pressure needed for a massive breakout.
All right, so that's the backdrop, the great 2025 disappointment. But where some people see a market that's just stuck in the mud, others are seeing a once-in-a-cycle kind of opportunity.
And this is where Fundstrat's Tom Lee comes into the picture with his super bullish 2026 forecast. See, he's looking at the same frustrating data as everyone else, but he's coming to a radically different conclusion. He's basically arguing a huge rebound is hiding in plain sight. And he's not just being blindly optimistic here. He sees what he calls a structurally attractive setup. This isn't just a gut feeling. His entire forecast is built on three really powerful macroeconomic tailwinds that he believes are all lining up perfectly for 2026.
So let's break these down. What are these three big reasons for optimism? These are the macro tailwinds he thinks are about to act like rocket fuel for assets like crypto.
Okay, first up, a major shift in monetary policy. For the last 3 years, it's all been about fighting inflation, which means tight money. Well, according to Lee, that entire regime is about to flip on its head. And look, this isn't just about the Fed being expected to cut rates. There's also the real possibility of a new, more crypto-friendly Fed chair being appointed. Both of these things point to the exact same goal, unleashing monetary liquidity. And if you look at history, more liquidity in the system has been pure rocket fuel for assets like Bitcoin and Ethereum. The second tailwind is the business cycle itself. It's been held down for years by inflation and all the Fed's tightening. But a cycle that's been suppressed for this long, it's like a coiled spring, It's just waiting to be released. And to put that into perspective, check out this absolutely stunning data point. The ISM Manufacturing Index, which is a huge measure of business confidence, has been in contraction territory for the longest stretch in its entire history. That's a historic signal of just how quiet the economy has been. But here's where the contrarian twist comes in. Tom Lee doesn't see this as a problem. He sees it as a launch pad. All of that suppressed activity, all of that pent-up demand, is just potential energy that's ready to come flooding back into the economy and fuel that next wave of growth. And the third and final macro factor? It's all about sentiment. To put it simply, investors are just skeptical. You look at the surveys, and even with some market gains, the overall mood is still pretty negative. Lee actually has a name for this. He calls it the Contrarian Hill. Think about it. When investors are this bearish, they're sitting on piles of cash. That cash becomes fuel. The second the market starts to turn, they're all forced to chase the rally, which pushes prices even higher. It's a paradox, right? But this level of pessimism is one of the most bullish signals you can possibly get. Okay, so you've got this powerful macro setup brewing, but that's only half the story. It gets even more interesting when you look at crypto itself, because it's going through this fundamental transformation. This is not the same market it was 4 years ago. I mean, Bitcoin itself has fundamentally changed. It's gone from being this retail-driven, speculative asset to a full-blown institutional one. Thanks to the spot ETFs from giants like BlackRock and Fidelity, Bitcoin now has a totally different and much larger class of buyer. The whole conversation is shifting from just price to actual underlying fundamentals. And for Ethereum, the runway is even bigger. We are at the very beginning of this tidal wave of tokenization. Yeah, it's starting with stablecoins, but you have major players getting ready to put everything, stocks, bonds, real estate, on blockchains like Ethereum. That is going to drive an absolutely unprecedented wave of on-chain activity. And while all that future demand is building up, look what's happening to the supply right now. The amount of ETH available on exchanges is just plummeting. It's a classic supply squeeze, plain and simple. A shrinking supply is about to slam into an explosion of new demand. It all really comes down to this key insight from Tom Lee. When the market's down or flat, it's so easy to just get fixated on price. But he argues we're in one of those rare periods where the fundamental developments are the real story. They're building a much stronger foundation than the current price would have you believe.
So, you combine those powerful macro tailwinds with these strengthening crypto fundamentals, where does it all lead? Well, it leads to Tom Lee's specific headline-grabbing prediction, a massive V-shaped recovery in early 2026.
For Ethereum, he's forecasting a potential surge to somewhere between $7,000 and $9,000. And that's just in the first quarter of 2026. A huge recovery, driven by that perfect storm of new liquidity and fundamental demand for tokenization. And for Bitcoin, the target is just as bold. Lee thinks it will not only recover, but push right past its previous all-time highs, all within that same early 2026 window. This would really solidify its new role as a true institutional-grade asset. So, if there's one crucial thing to take away from all this, it's the potential for a major shift in what actually drives this market. We could be moving away from a cycle that's been dominated by hype and short-term price noise to one where strong underlying fundamentals finally take the driver's seat.
And that really leaves us with the big question, doesn't it? You have this powerful fundamental case building just under the surface, but it's clashing with a market that is still overwhelmingly bearish and skeptical. So which force is going to win out in 2026? Well, according to Tom Lee, the setup is there for an absolutely explosive answer.
Stay ahead in the crypto market. Subscribe now for the latest global news and updates.